The Asus Zephyrus M15 is one of the best performing gaming laptops with GTX 1660 Ti graphics that I've ever tested. Like everything though, it's not perfect and there are some issues that you need to know about. First up, gaming performance. As mentioned, the 1660 Ti was giving me impressive results, doing better in many games than others I've tested with the same hardware inside. The 1660 Ti is still a good sweet spot in terms of price to performance too. You'll have no problems playing modern games with higher settings and decent frame rates. Plus the M15 applies a little overclock to the graphics in the highest turbo mode too, which helps things along. Outside of gaming, the Intel processor is doing surprisingly well, beating other 6-core i7 laptops I've tested without issue, both in single and multi-core performance. It's even ahead of some of the 6-core Ryzen 5 4600H machines. Not all of them, but some of them. Just depends on the specific laptop. This good CPU performance is likely in part due to the M15 using liquid metal on the CPU. Unlike the Scar 15 I recently looked at, or Tough A15, the vents above the fan intakes underneath are not blocked. As a result, CPU temperatures weren't getting too high, but there was some GPU thermal throttling. I don't think it's too much of an issue though, because as mentioned earlier, this is still one of the best performing laptops in games I've tested. But that may be a different story in a warmer environment, where throttling could be a bigger issue. The M15 also lets you undervolt through the BIOS, which is a nice to have feature for enthusiasts. Inside we've got the battery down the front, two M.2 storage slots above it, Wi-Fi 6 is soldered to the board near the SSD, and there's just one slot for memory. This is the case with other laptops in the Zephyrus lineup. Asus say there just isn't enough space to fit two memory slots. The M15 does at least have 16 GB soldered to the board, but without a stick installed it will run in single channel, so you'll definitely want to make sure you've got a second stick installed for optimal performance. I don't think this is too bad from an upgradability perspective. You can stick another 16 GB stick in and have 32 GB in dual channel, which I think is going to be fine for most people even years from now. If you really do need more capacity though, you could also put a 32 GB stick in and have 48 GB in total, though you might have some performance inconsistencies as not all of that will be able to run in dual channel. Battery life was reasonable, however it's got the same sized battery as the Asus G14, which has a Ryzen based processor, and that machine lasted a fair bit longer than this one, which I think really goes to show one of the advantages of Ryzen. Most Ryzen laptops I've tested just tend to have better battery life than their Intel counterparts. Build quality is pretty good. The magnesium alloy finish feels fairly sturdy despite the thinner size, and keyboard flex was on the lower side. Mine has a soft touch finish. It's a little textured feeling, but for the most part it feels smooth. The keyboard has a single zone of RGB lighting, but there's also a per key RGB model. Typing was good, and aside from the small arrow keys, I had a problem with the spacebar. Like most Asus gaming laptops, the spacebar sticks out on the left so you can more easily hit it with your thumb with your hand on WASD, but I found that it hardly worked unless I pressed extra hard. To be clear, this was only when pressing the front bit that sticks out. The rest of the spacebar was perfectly fine. This was never an issue for me when actually typing. I only found that it was while playing a game that I would have my thumb sitting on the edge of the spacebar, like when you try to jump in a game or something. I'm not sure if it's just an issue with my unit though. The precision touchpad was smooth, clicks down anywhere, and worked very nicely. The speakers are underneath towards the front on the left and right, and they sound well above average for a gaming laptop. It's available with a 15.6-inch 1080p 144Hz or 240Hz screen. Unfortunately, I was sent the 4K 60Hz panel, so I don't have stats for gaming options. But for the content creators out there, I can say the 4K option checks all the boxes. The I/O is decent. The left has the power input, gigabit Ethernet, HDMI port, USB Type-A, and 3.5mm microphone and headphone jacks. The right has a USB Type-C port with Thunderbolt 3, two more Type-A ports, and Kensington lock at the back. In addition to Thunderbolt, the Type-C port also lets you charge the laptop. Just don't expect full performance, and only use it for stuff like school or office work. The HDMI and Type-C ports also connect directly to the NVIDIA graphics, so it should be good to go for VR. The M15 doesn't have a camera, but it does have microphones, and this is what they sound like. Overall, I think the Zephyrus M15 is a nice portable gaming laptop. The performance is good for its size and specs. It's doing well for an Intel option in CPU performance, and gaming results are ahead of most others I've tested with same hardware. So it seems to be tuned pretty well, and that liquid metal is probably helping out. The main issues I had were the spacebar, lack of camera, as that just feels standard in a laptop, and the lack of memory upgradability. You can work around most of these problems though, it just depends what your priorities are. At the end of the day, no laptop is perfect and everything has compromises. It just depends on what you're comfortable dealing with. Anyway, let me show you how well this laptop performs in 20 different games at all setting levels. I've also compared it against other gaming laptops with similar specs so you can see just how it stacks up. So I'll see you over in that video. Otherwise, if you're new to the channel, then make sure you get subscribed for future laptop reviews like this one.